Man, I'm getting kind of nervous about the release of Snow White in 2024. Does anybody else get a really bad feeling about it? Like, I'm not a hater by any means, or at least not in regards to these films specifically, or just the Disney live action films in general. I always try to give them a fair shot, but to anybody else, is this film shaping up to be perhaps the worst live action remake of the bunch? Is it shaping up to be the worst received Disney remake of all time? Because I kind of think it is. Right from the get-go, I think this film has had a lot working against it. After all, we're dealing with Snow White here. The original is a beloved classic of the screen, a massively iconic film that catapulted the Walt Disney Company into financial success, and was a massive step forward for the animation industry and its success on the silver screen. That's a pretty tough act to follow. And yet, that's not the only thing that works against it. It's not just the legacy that it's fighting against. And so, I really do think that the upcoming Snow White film is on track to be among the most hated films of all time. Okay, so let's get started. We'll begin with this. I do think the Disney live action films, people have turned against them a long time ago. Some of them are genuinely good. Like, I enjoyed the first Maleficent film, Cruella was great, the Cinderella remake, I enjoyed that, Jungle Book 2, but there's just a lot of trash in between. Garbage films that outweigh the good films by a significant margin. Peter Pan and Wendy, I'm looking at you, son. Pinocchio, oh my goodness. And it's gone on to poison the well, so to speak, and in many people's eyes, it served to somewhat diminish the original films. Not sure I quite agree with going that far, but it is thrown around quite a lot. And so now people don't want their favourite classics from the Golden Age, or the Renaissance, or now even the Revival era, getting remade by Disney, because there's a decent chance that the new film is going to suck and spoil a lot of the original magic, and suck out the soul, really. So already, that reputation, that inbuilt bias, is just one reason that this thing's in a really terrible position out of the gate. There's massive fatigue from these sort of remakes, and a desire to keep the original pure, so to speak.
Stop! He's already dead!
But we continue, because there is more. Next up, our two lead actresses, from a social media perspective at the very least, well, their reputation's kind of in the gutter. Look, I've never really bought into the hate surrounding Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot? Gadot? Is that how it's said? I think it's Gal Gadot. I hope. Anyway, I've never bought into the hate. Is she the greatest actress of all time? No, clearly not. Not quite at that level. But at the same time, I've really seen so much worse. And it's not like she's stinking up Shakespeare on the stage. She mostly features in films where the acting is secondary anyway. I mean, who really cares if Wonder Woman is wooden? You're there to watch her beat up German soldiers in World War I. That's the stuff we're here for. Fighting. Oh, she was bad in a film with The Rock. Who cares? We're here for the fights and the action. And so she's going to be in a Disney live action. Oh well, no one's winning an Oscar out of these. That's my vibe here. She's not great, but she's not terrible, and I do think her accent plays a part in that anyway, so it's not really her fault. And I mean, yeah, there's also the whole Palestine-Israel stuff, but, I don't earn enough money off these videos to wade into that and talk about it on a video about Disney, so yeah. But regardless of what you think, her reputation is in tatters, so that's our main antagonist. Somebody who's widely lambasted as a poor actress and hated by loud portions of the internet, and also is considered cringe by pretty much everybody in the world. And if you don't think so, do you remember this bad boy?
Imagine there's no heaven.
That's a yikes from me, dog. So that's one of our headliners, and the other one is the up-and-coming Rachel Zegler. And rarely have I ever seen the internet turn on somebody so quickly, my goodness. This kid's copping hate from every which way. Like, yeah, she had some unflattering things to say about the original film. And now the hate train has rolled full steam ahead. And I'm not going to go in on her here. After all, I've talked about her comments previously. I thought the hate was a bit overblown if I'm being honest with you. But regardless, public opinion seems to have swung very hard against her for now. And so that's your lead actress. That's your Snow White, a beloved princess copping shit from every which way. And I don't know how much individual actors are draws anymore. In the franchise era, they probably weren't so much, but these days, when Marvel seems to be running on fumes, maybe we're going to see actors become those big box office draws again. And in that vein, with the fact that these two women seem to be the poster children for being hated by a vocal portion of the fans, damage the earning potential of the film? Will people not go to watch this simply because they don't like those actresses? Or will they hate watch it? Honestly, I do think that these kinds of films do sustain themselves on the massive hate bandwagon. People that watch them, knowing ahead of time that they're going to hate the film and will enjoy nothing about it but go to watch it anyway because it gives them something to rage about. I feel like there's a lot of those people, and Disney knows there's a lot of those people. and so they're probably salivating at the thought of their two leads being hugely controversial. But of course, that being said, it does mean that this film's pretty much set up to be the worst received live-action remake ever. Might be financially lucrative, who knows, but it's going to whip up a shitstorm like no other. But that's not the only reason I think the film's going to be received extremely poorly. There is another reason, or 7 reasons, depending on how you look at it. The original film is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but this film, not so much. Snow White and the Seven Not Dwarfs. And look, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, says everyone as they're about to say something offensive, so I hope I'm not. But I've seen shit tons of articles from actual little people actors, as in those that did not get a massive profile boost from the world's most popular show and therefore are able to get any role they want. And they all seem a little bit dejected that Disney moved in a different direction here. I assume roles for little people are already a bit scarce. You don't see them that often on TV. And this just makes that worse, doesn't it? But at the same time, it also feels like a pretty major story divergence for the Disney remake to take. And one that really, for me, feels like it very much moves away from that fantasy charm. Are dwarfs really just not PC anymore? It's a very contentious issue, I know that. And I guess Disney was not keen at all to dive into that minefield, especially after Peter Dinklage straight up called them out for the film's very existence to begin with. But by doing that, by swapping them out, I do think it really, well, it alienates fans, doesn't it? Like, there's no doubt about that. And so already, like I said, you're setting yourself up for a very poor reception. You're trying to set the record for the lowest Rotten Tomatoes ranking of all time based on the highest number of reviews. Because it feels like concurrently they want to have the best film ever, but also the worst film ever. And that's just for the reception. I do think it's also going to hamper the quality quite significantly. And it's going to damage that whimsical tone of the original film. It's just such a strange decision because they're such a key part of the movie. Is it going to be like Snow White and the 7 other totally not dwarf mythical creatures? Is it going to be like Snow White and the 7 random dudes? Like, it doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? I'm certainly not feeling it, that's for sure. Which in turn ties back into my next point. It feels like from what we've seen so far, well, from what we've heard about the film from actors and whatnot, feels like the creators hate the original. Like, there are Rachel Zegler's comments, right? Which, well, they didn't exactly paint a glowing review of the original. And then we have, well, written by Greta Gerwig. And look, I love her work. Barbie, a killer, one of the greats. But I also have a feeling that they're going to go very hard on pushing away from every single story trope imaginable in this film, to the point that your finished product is not going to resemble Snow White at all. And yes, moving away from outdated stereotypes is a good thing, but I think you can still do that whilst maintaining the heart of the characters and the heart of the story. But with the setup that we seem to be getting, changing the 7 dwarfs, discussion on how Snow White's being set up to be this total badass, how romance is very stupid and all that jazz, it does paint a far different picture of what we're potentially going to get. And in my eyes, it sort of loses itself because of that. It no longer feels like they want to make a Snow White movie, but are instead making a movie about a different world and different characters with the original film as their backdrop. They're making money off the original whilst not wanting to be a part of it. And at that stage though, why not just make that movie instead of using Snow White as your launching point? If you're confident with the idea and you think it's going to be good, why not take a gamble on that original film that you want to make to create your action-adventure hero film? And honestly, it doesn't sound like a bad concept in theory. But I think where people are going to be turned off by it and hate the movie is because it's changing an intrinsic part of their childhood and attacks their nostalgia directly. They're straight up being told their old favourite is out of date, that their nostalgia goggles have blinded them, that it's misogynistic trash. And really nobody likes to hear that about something they love. And this film is beloved. And so, like I said, if Disney wants to make that movie, they should make that movie, but as an original piece. Don't bastardize a classic, because everybody's going to come away from that feeling upset. The people who like the original are going to feel angry. The people who like the new one are going to get angry because there's people hating on this new version. And the creators and the actors, they're going to get flamed on social media. So I really just blame Disney at this point. I feel like they just do this on purpose to make money off the drama. Damn it, Mickey! Have a heart, son! Just my 2 cents. And so with all that being said, not really much else to say now, so I'll pass it to you. What do you think of the upcoming Snow White film? What do you think it's going to be like? You think it's going to be good, maybe not? Do you think it'll do well and be popular? Or maybe you think the opposite? Maybe you think it'll do well but be hated? Lots of opinions you could have here, and so I'm curious for your thoughts. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and let me know.